Langford of Oklahoma. Senator Langford, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you. Good Sunday morning to you.
Well, good Sunday morning to you. It's always great to have you back. Let's start with that decision over tariffs on Friday. The court saying, quote, tariffs are a tax and only Congress has the power to impose taxes. Do you agree with the court's ruling that ultimately the ability to impose tariffs lies with Congress?
Well, this is actually going to go to the Supreme Court next, because the way the law is actually written is the law gives the authority to the president to be able to make decisions regulating imports and exports. And what the president is saying is tariffs is a way to be able to regulate imports and exports. To be very clear, what he is trying to do is to try to get more manufacturing into the United States, to get other countries to be able to open up their markets to American products, and to be able to cut our deficit. So those are the three targets he's trying to accomplish, and he is accomplishing all three of those. We have 10 trade deals that have now been done in 7 very short months with major countries like the EU, with the UK, with the Philippines, with Indonesia, South Korea, Japan. These are enormous trade agreements that have happened. And so for the court to step in and say, hey, he doesn't have the ability to be able to regulate trade, that is within the statute, and it's now going to go to the Supreme Court to be able to determine that.
Well, Senator, here's what former Vice President Mike Pence had to say about tariffs recently. Take a listen.
I saw Secretary Bessent speaking very glowingly about the projection is $300 billion in tariff revenue this year. Well, tariffs are a tax, and American importers and businesses and ultimately consumers pay almost all of that.
Senator, do you acknowledge that Americans ultimately pay the price of tariffs, as we just heard the vice president argue?
Yeah, no question that tariffs are a tax. The question is who actually pays that. Part of it's going to be paid by the importer. Part of it's going to be paid by the exporter on that. It just breaks down product to product. Some products are more the actual consumer going to pay. Some products are more the actual exporter is going to pay. But what we're seeing right now is inflation is still stable at this point. We've not seen a rise in inflation during this time period. As the White House has said over and over again, hey, they're watching that. They're attentive to that to be able to make sure we don't see that. Now, I'm a free trader. I want to see us trade with every single country. But that also means we've got to have a stable program that they've got to be able to receive our products, which they haven't in the past. Now, many of these countries are opening up their markets to American sales. The ultimate thing, what I'm hearing, Kristen, more than anything else from all the companies that I talk to is they just want it to be set. They just want to know what the rules of the road are. Every time there's a new court hearing, every time there's a new change, it's destabilizing for every one of our businesses. So let's get all these things resolved as quickly as we possibly can.
Senator, let's turn now to the turmoil at the CDC. The president firing CDC Director Susan Menares. She was just sworn into office several weeks ago. Several other top officials actually resigned in protest. Now, you voted to confirm Dr. Menares just a month ago. Here's what Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska had to say about this. She says, quote, the removal of the director after such a short tenure appears to be evidence that politics are taking precedence over policy. Is she right, Senator?
No, I don't know that she's right, and I'm not sure anyone really knows all the inside of this at this point. So it's very clear if you don't align with leadership in this administration, as it is in other administrations, you've got to be able to follow the instructions that are there. I think a lot of people are jumping to conclusions to say, hey, she's fighting against on vaccine issues and other things. I would tell you, we don't know all the details of that at this point. As you know, the commissioner of the IRS recently just left. He was just confirmed recently, and he's now going to take a different position within the administration and go through the nomination process in a different way. I would tell you at this point, it is very clear the president has an agenda. He is trying to accomplish that. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is also focused on what are we going to do to make America healthy again? How are we going to actually get some of these additives out of foods? What are we going to do to be able to help the nation on this? So let's let this play out as we continue to be able to go. But I would tell you, as many Americans would say, the CDC is very important. We've got to have them as a clear leader there. Let's get that process done.
Well, let me ask you about Secretary Kennedy, because he's canceled nearly $500 million for vaccine development, a $600 million contract to develop a bird flu vaccine. He's limiting access to the COVID vaccine. Do you have 100% confidence in Secretary Kennedy, Senator?
I could go through several of those things. I don't think he's limiting access to the COVID vaccine. It's still widely accepted. The challenge is it right for children to be able to have the COVID vaccine? That's been a conversation where doctors widely disagree on this. And NIH has started reopening a lot of their testing again, as the administration looked at it initially and said, we want to hold on some of these different studies that are out there. And then now they're reopening those dollars to be able to get them going, which I'm very supportive of. We've got to continue to lead the world in medical research. We're the best researchers in the world. We got to continue to do that. And I will tell you just personally, I will be in line in the next couple of weeks to get my flu shot. I'm a big believer in vaccines. I think it's the right thing to be able to do. I continue to encourage Americans to be able to get their vaccines.
Well, given that you support all of that, just going back to my original question, Senator, do you have 100% confidence in Secretary Kennedy?
I believe he is who the president has picked. I don't think he's gone a wrong direction in this. I think he is challenging some of the assumptions that a lot of Americans have asked just to be able to ask questions about. What is it about our food? What is it about autism? What is it about all these things that are different in America than they are in different places? I think those are appropriate questions. He's pushing the boundaries, but he also seems to be following the science. It's not wrong to be able to ask hard questions. It is wrong to ignore the science. Yeah. I don't see him ignoring the science. I see him asking the hard questions.
It's just worth noting the science has debunked links between autism and vaccines for more than 20 years.
Oh, no, I agree. I don't connect those two. Okay. Yeah, I don't connect those two at all. But there are reasonable questions to say, why do we have more cases of autism here? What is it? But I don't think they're connected to vaccines.
Okay, Senator, and I want to turn to the Fed now. Take a listen to what Vice President J.D. Vance had to say about the Fed in an interview this week. Take a look.
I don't think that we allow bureaucrats to sit from on high and make decisions about monetary policy and interest rates without any input from the people that were elected to serve the American people. I feel very strongly that the President of the United States is much better able to make these determinations.
Senator, do you think the Federal Reserve or the president should set interest rate policies?
Yeah, I think the Federal Reserve should set that, but obviously the president and the president's policy, and quite frankly, members of Congress, we're very involved in this. One of the things that we just passed was a major tax bill to be able to stabilize tax policy, to be able to incentivize business growth and job growth across the country that will help every single American. That is Congress engaging to be able to actually help the economy. The president has a role, as he's doing with tariffs in multiple different ways, to be able to negotiate more deals. Federal Reserve also has a role in this. So all of us have a role in it. We just have a different role. Federal Reserve is at its best when it's independent, but they're not independent of the entire American people.
But just to be very clear, you think it's important for the Federal Reserve to be independent?
I do think it's important for them to be independent. So I also think it's important for the president to do that and Congress to do that as well. Let's each do our job on that.
All right. Finally, Senator, Congress will return to Washington, D.C., where President Trump, as you know, has federalized the police force. He's deployed the National Guard to the nation's capital. The president says he plans to expand this model to cities like Chicago and New York. Listen to what your Republican colleague, Senator Tom Tillis of North Carolina, said recently on this topic. Look.
Where do we stop? Do we honestly think that D.C. has the worst crime problem in the United States? No, it's got a crime problem. But where do we go from here? Do we go to Gary, Indiana, Detroit, pick some red state, go to Memphis, a red state, it's got a crime problem. Where do we go?
Now, just to put a fine point on this, Oklahoma actually has more homicides per capita than California and New York. Would you like to see President Trump deploy the National Guard or to federalize law enforcement in Oklahoma?
Yeah, I don't think he's federalizing law enforcement in any of the states or in the areas outside of Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is a federal enclave. He has said specifically about Chicago, for instance, the highest murder rate in the country for the past 13 years. That's got to stop. as you know, and you study these history areas extremely well, the National Guard has been called out 30 different times by different presidents to be able to deal with challenges in different areas.
But what
of
about
crime around
Oklahoma,
the
Senator?
country.
Should he dispatch the National Guard to Oklahoma, where the crime rate's higher than New York and California, for example?
If the governor of Oklahoma or the mayors of these different cities were to invite him in, I would say they would cooperate with the president and say, hey, we could use the help to be able to deal with any kind of crime issues on it. I don't know the exact statistic you're calling out there for Oklahoma. I would be very, very surprised on that. I have to get a chance to be able to see where that's coming from. But I would say the people of Oklahoma would welcome any help that we can get to be able to deal with criminal issues. We do have federal authorities that are here because of our tribal issues that are here in the state. After the McGirt ruling, we have more FBI agents than normal because of that particular issue on that. But I would tell you, Chicago is a challenge. As we've got, as I mentioned, 13 years have had the highest murder rate in the country. They should be asking for help rather than pushing help away.
All right. Senator James Lankford, thank you so much for your perspective.